Hi, Shep Hyken here. Very excited to be back on Booked for Success, sponsored by our good friends at Go2Assist. And we have, look at this, in the house, kind of, Jay Baer, actually in the house in Napa, California. Wow, all the way, and that's a big far cry from Indianapolis, where you live. You're in Indy. No, you're not even in Indy. You're in a small town outside of Indy.
So Bloomington, where the university is, Indiana University, fighting Hoosiers. That's right.
All right, rock and roll, fighting Hoosiers. So let's give a little background on Jay. This guy is absolutely amazing. 5 books he's written, New York Times best-selling author. I love the book Utility, but the book that we're focused on today is Hug Your Haters, which comes out like real soon. And if you haven't gotten it, you need to get it. And even if it's not out, you should still order it, because Jay will tell us why once we get into the program. He is the founder of Convince and Convert, which is actually a great consulting firm that's worked with amazing companies, large, well, mostly large, and he just helps his clients find ways to keep, retain, build customers. He gets an intersection of technology, social media, and customer service all combined. Did I get that right, Jay? That's
absolutely. That's what we do.
All right, so why don't we just get started? Tell us a little bit more about you, about Convince and Convert, and then we'll get right into Hug Your Haters, which I'm sure that our listeners and viewers are going to want to hear about.
Thank you, sir. Great to see you. Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on, and of course, thanks to Go2Assist for putting this together. So here's how this happened. As a marketing consultant, we work with big organizations all the time, a lot of social media marketing, and increasingly what we were finding is big brands were struggling with the social media customer care side of things. And it's an interesting place that we're in now, where we're using the same tools for marketing, Twitter, Facebook, websites, etc., that we're also using for customer care. And there was a lot of angst and dissonance and confusion in these brands about, you know, how to be proactive versus reactive. And I said, geez, why is this so hard for people? And so I conducted a massive research project. I partnered with the firm Edison Research, and we really looked at the science of complaint. And we looked at who complains and where they complain and why they complain and how, online and offline. And the results were so remarkable that we decided to write a book about it, and that book became Hug Your Haters.
Wow. So, and I've read the book cover to cover. It is filled with so many stats and facts, as well as some excellent examples. By the way, the one thing I want to mention is that in the world of digital media, and I wish I would have put this in the introduction, but let's make it right now. Make it right now, and that is that you are the #1 most tweeted guy in the industry. Is that right?
I'm the most retweeted person in the world among digital marketers.
That's what I'm talking about. That's a lot of people.
5 or 7 among CMOs. So.
Yeah, who
get credibility
on Twitter, but digital marketers.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, that's
all right.
My kids like that.
Hug Your Haters by Jay Baer. This is the book. Let's start with Hug Your Haters. What does it mean to hug your hater?
Well, Shep, you know this probably better than anybody in the whole world. 1/3 of customer complaints, according to our research, 1/3 of customer complaints are never answered. But most of those complaints that are not answered are actually online, because we treat customers and customer interactions differently online versus offline. We almost always answer the phone. We almost always answer an email, though perhaps too slowly. But online, if somebody complains, in many cases, we willingly and knowingly just blow that off. Like, well, somebody, slammed us on Facebook or Twitter or Yelp or TripAdvisor. Well, whatever. That's just one of those online customers. And so what we discovered in the research is that if you answer a customer complaint in any channel, it increases customer advocacy significantly. It makes a bad situation better. If you don't answer a customer complaint in any channel, it makes a bad situation worse. It decreases customer advocacy. So you have these huge swings in customer love just based on whether or not you address that customer's complaints. But yet online, in many cases, we don't address them at all. We just completely ignore it. And so Hug Your Haters is really the formula for how to solve that problem and how to differentiate your business by being great at customer service, primarily online.
So I'm under the impression that more and more companies are jumping into this social arena, and I call it social customer service, social customer care, but it's basically, the concept of responding in all these different channels. I think you're saying that a number of companies aren't there yet.
Oh, a number of companies are not there yet. I've talked about Hug Your Haters at many conferences. where people come up and say, we don't answer anybody in social media. So certainly you're right, Shep. There are companies that are starting to get good at social customer care. In fact, there's some that are terrific. But even within that world, now that's just table stakes, because one of the things you may have seen in the book, I talked about sort of the future of customer service, where it's not just Facebook and Twitter. Now it's Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp and WeChat and Instagram and Snapchat. So the channel proliferation, the places that your customers want to interact with your business, is going to continue to get broader and broader and broader. And most companies, even those that are already committed to social customer care, simply are not prepared to be active in 10 or 12 different social media channels in a customer service capacity.
And one of the questions that I'm always asked is, Shep, which channel should we be on? Which should we focus on? My response is, and I'm sure it's yours, where's your customer?
Yeah.
Is it that simple?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just think philosophically, businesses need to address their customers in the channels that their customers prefer, as opposed to the channels that are convenient for the business. Now, that said, if you look at it mathematically, Facebook, according to our research, Facebook gets the preponderance of online complaints. A lot of times we think of Twitter as a customer service channel, and there's lots of Twitter-based customer service programs. But if you look at the actual volume of complaints, Facebook is 71% of all the social media complaints, and Twitter's just 17.
Wow. So Twitter is 7. Wow, that's a big. And you would think people just tweet out when they're upset, but no, they jump on Facebook. What about the other channels that are more review sites, like a Yelp or a TripAdvisor?
Sure. The review sites as a whole, so you think about all the different sites, and one of the things that I talk about a lot in Hug Your Haters is that, we instantly think of Yelp and TripAdvisor. Those are the two that are perhaps best known. But in every industry, Shep, in every vertical market, there's 1, 2, 3 different ratings and review sites that are making money because they're reviewing. I'm here at a multifamily conference. There's multiple websites in the multifamily industry, apartmentratings.com, and all these different types of places where you can rate your apartment. When I talk about in the book, a lot is a site called realself.com, where you can rate and review your plastic surgeon and give a 1 to 5 star score for your butt lift. I mean, every industry has these ratings and review sites, and they're incredibly important. So they are approximately 25 to 30% of all the complaints, but the power of reviews is significant, as you well know. I mean, consumers believe reviews almost as much as they believe recommendations from friends and family members. Now, that may be terrible decision making, but that is true. We really put a lot of stock in ratings and reviews, and so many companies ignore them, especially negative reviews, like, well, this customer is lying, or this is untrue, we're not going to answer that. And so then it just sits there festering and sucking away from your reputation.
Right. So I want to get into dealing specifically with how to handle complaints and problems and haters, if you will, that aren't on these review sites. But as long as we're on this topic, when you see a negative review, what do you feel is the best way to handle this as a company?
You should answer every complaint in every channel every time. So when you have a negative review, you should answer back, you should apologize, you should give the customer a remediation option. And if the customer leaves a positive review, you should also acknowledge and thank them for that. If they leave a neutral review, you should acknowledge and thank them for that. Look, if somebody called your business and said, I've got a problem, you wouldn't just let the phone ring. You wouldn't refuse to call them back. But somehow, because it's a review site, it's become acceptable business practices to not answer back. It's a really unusual set of circumstances.
Right. So what you're saying is respond to the review. Obviously,
Always.
The goal is to get that person, ideally, the rant becomes a great PR opportunity if you fix it right and they go back on and say, I left this review. I let them know I was unhappy. I am so excited to go back and do business with them again because look at how they handled it.
And that does happen. I will tell you, it doesn't happen a lot. Usually what you're trying to do is not take somebody from 1 stars to 5 stars, because it's really tough to do that. You have disappointed them somehow. But if you can take them from 1 stars to 3 stars, where at least they're not actively trying to bash you, that is mission accomplished. But here's the important thing. Online, customer service is a spectator sport. So yes, you do want to make that person happy, but actually I would tell you that it's more important to demonstrate the fact that your company is listening, to demonstrate the fact that your company cares enough to respond, and the impact that that has on all the other people that are looking on, which could be tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people. That impact is where the real business magic lies. It's not necessarily converting one person from detractor to proponent. It's demonstrating what you believe in to this huge group of potential customers that are kind of see that review and that interchange afterwards.
Right. I think that's so important to recognize that just noticing that the company is doing something about it helps to dampen a negative review. So,
of course,
you're in Napa Valley right now, and there's a famous restaurant, probably one of the most famous, most expensive restaurants in the United States, if not maybe even the world, and that is the French Laundry. Yes, French Laundry. So the story goes, there was a negative review, and the negative review was a 1 on a scale of 1 to 5. It was either Yelp or one of those review sites, and the reason for the review had nothing to do with the experience in the restaurant. As a matter of fact, this person never even went to the restaurant. Do you know the story?
I don't know the story, but I've seen those circumstances, yeah.
He was upset because he couldn't get a reservation. He waited until he got to Napa, called to make a reservation, couldn't get in. They said it would be 2 to 3 months before they could get in them. And just because it was not easy to get a reservation because they're so popular, he gave them a 1-star review.
Yeah, that's so frustrating. The thing about ratings and review sites is every business owner sort of loves it and hates it and loves to hate it. You've probably seen the sign, I have it in one of my presentations, it's kind of around the internet, that a guy put outside of his bar that says, come in and try the worst rum and coke that one guy on Yelp ever had in his life.
Yes.
Which I think is very appropriate to sort of how businesses think about ratings and review sites, because you're trying to do what you can do, and you're trying to serve diners every day and have a world-class restaurant, and then somebody leaves you a negative review, which reduces your average based on something that's totally not your day-to-day business. That it is very frustrating sometimes.
So here's what I'm hearing, and it's real important because a lot of people listening are in the support center, call center world, that we need to be proactive in managing our online reviews, comments that are coming in. If somebody doesn't directly do a DM, a direct message us on Twitter or Facebook, reach out to us directly, and they just post, we're still going to see that. But these review sites, don't think of a review site as just one-sided. The opportunity to jump in is very, very important. All right, let's jump to another topic. In your book, Hug Your Haters, you talk about a great experience that an airline gave its passengers when the problem wasn't even their fault. Just a few years ago, there was a volcano eruption, and basically a quarter, if not more, of all the airlines were shut down because there was so much ash in the sky they couldn't fly, right?
Yeah.
So the story, as you tell it, go ahead. You do it better than I do.
Well, some of you may remember that volcano. It was like 5 years ago, and it was in Iceland, and it's some crazy long name, which I will not try. I thought that I should learn to pronounce that in case people like Shep Hyken ask me about this story. I should know, just like, I can name that volcano, but I'm not that good. This airline, KLM, Royal Dutch Airlines, they're based in Amsterdam, and so the ash cloud basically covered all of Europe, so nobody could fly, and so they couldn't fly anywhere, and so they had thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of passengers. Like, what are we going to do? How do I get out of Poland? How do I get to Poland, or whatever? And so they just, it was such a huge volume. It was way, way, way higher than they usually deal with in customer support. And so they had an emergency meeting and said, okay, look, we got 2 options. We can either sort of pick and choose who we answer based on, sort of how acute is their problem, or where are they on our loyalty scale? Yeah, I mean, how many miles do they have with us? I mean, you can sort of pick and choose, which is typically what would happen. Or we can find a way to just answer everybody. But here's the thing. If we answer everybody, we can never put that genie back in the bottle, because you can't very well go to your customers 2 weeks later and say, we provide exceptional customer service during times of volcano, right? I mean, you can't do that, right? So they said, all right, let's just go for it. So they had the labor on hand because pilots couldn't fly and flight attendants couldn't attend and baggage handlers couldn't handle. So they were just sitting around and said, look, everybody get out your laptops, and they just brought in a bunch of card tables, and everybody just answered every customer. And that was the beginning of what is now, I think, perhaps the best social customer care program in the world. KLM now answers 50 to 60,000 customer interactions in social media per week. They staff it 24 hours a day, and they answer in 14 different languages. So if you tweet them, Shep, at 2 in the morning in Turkish, because I know you were in Istanbul recently, if you tweet them at 2 in the morning in Turkish, they will tweet you back by 2:10 in Turkish. Last year, they accidentally sold $25 million worth of airline tickets. They're not a sales organization. They're a customer care organization. But in the process of providing care, it's like, oh, well, here's a link to this ticket. They sold $25 million on accident.
Wow. Wow. So all this goes to my whole point. It doesn't matter whether it's social customer care or direct support and any channel. To do it right doesn't necessarily cost. It actually ends up paying. To do it wrong ultimately will cost more than it would cost to do it right, even if it had some just marginal payoff.
It's so true, but you've been working on these themes for a lot longer than I have. And it's so mysterious that businesses, in many cases, just can't piece that together, right? Yeah. They still look at customer service as a necessary evil. They don't look at customer service as what it really is, in my estimation, why I wrote Hug Your Haters and why I think my background is suited for this kind of book now, is that I really and truly believe that customer service is the new marketing. Look, your competitors can steal everything from you. They can steal your price, they can steal your products, they can steal your website copy, they can poach your best people, they can go after your best customers, but the one thing your competition can never take from you, the one thing that is yours and yours alone, is if you genuinely and truly put the resources necessary to care more about your customers than they do. That cannot be copied, that cannot be mimicked. But yet most companies still today are so much more enthralled with marketing. They're so much more focused on customer acquisition than they are on customer retention. And it really is cutting off your nose to spite your face. But hopefully, if you keep telling them the truth, Shep, they'll figure it out eventually.
Well, you're telling the truth as well. And I think it's so true. Your marketing is when that customer goes out and talks about the experience, which you could spend a lot of money on marketing and advertising, but the best you're going to get is on those positive reviews that they give, not just on the review sites, not just on social channels like Facebook, Twitter, or any of the others, but also when they're sitting around the dinner table, when they're sitting in a boardroom, they're at a conference somewhere like Europe and Napa at that conference, talking about who's doing it right. So another topic, another subject, but it ties into what you just talked about. KLM said, we will answer everybody within 10 minutes, or you made the reference to them answering in 10 minutes. What's appropriate? I mean, I just written some articles, and I'm blown away by the length of time it takes for somebody to respond to an email even, or if it's a Facebook post or a tweet. How long do you let it sit out there before it becomes a real problem, and what's a realistic response time?
I mean, faster is better, of course, and customer expectations continue to increase in terms of what they anticipate businesses can do from a response time perspective, which, look, all of this comes back to resources. Can you do it faster? Sure, you just need more resources. Can you answer every complaint in every channel every time? Sure, you just need more resources. We have to find a way to commit those resources to customer care in a way that we typically have not. The research that I did for the book shows that 40% of the people who complain online expect a reply within an hour. So 4 out of 10 expect a reply within an hour. The average response time in social media now is 5 hours. Now, realize that most people in social media don't get an answer at all, but those that do, it's about 5 hours. So they expect 1, it takes 5. Email, the average time it takes to get an email back now is 44 hours, which is really, it's almost 2 hours, almost 2 days, yeah. It's a long time.
Wow. I guess if I wanted my question answered in 44 hours, I probably would wait 44 hours to ask the question.
Precisely. Well, and what happens all the time, Shep, is in the book I talk about the 2 different types of haters. There's on-stage haters, which complain in public in social media, and off-stage haters, which complain in more of the legacy channels, calls, and emails. And so what happens all the time is that businesses are not fast enough, and so they don't answer the phone fast enough, or they don't reply to emails fast enough. And so you take a customer who is very happy to have a private exchange, and now they're like, well, if I can't get an email back, or I've got to wait and hold this long, I'm going public. And so then they take something that was off stage and they turn it on stage, and now all of a sudden they light you up in public on Facebook, Twitter, Yelp, TripAdvisor. And so there's some amazing research out of the Netherlands that shows that 71% of the people who complain in social media first complained on the phone or email.
Wow. And that's the lousy job that some of these companies are doing, which escalates the problem to a public PR nightmare, potentially.
Yeah, you're making your own Frankenstein at that point. Not only are you taking something that was private and turning it public, which may not be to your benefit, but just from a pure resources standpoint, now you're answering the same problem 2 or 3 times. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy. And you know something, there's so much, and as I think about, and I've got a great question coming up here, but as I just stay on this, I'm thinking about the opportunity to learn from these haters, if you will, are giving us great data. And what kills me is that I see companies receiving complaints, and I work with them, and guess what? They get the same complaints every day, if not every hour, if not every few minutes, and I'm thinking to myself, what are they doing to eliminate the complaint or to mitigate it even? And I ask, is this the same number of people complaining about this issue as last year? And they go, pretty much. I go, what are you guys doing over here? It's crazy.
How do we fix the thing that causes the complaints? I was doing a webinar. I told you so. I was doing a webinar a couple weeks ago, and I was doing the Q&A, and somebody asks me, Jay, how do we get fewer negative reviews? And I said, somewhat cheekily, but truthfully, I said, well, you could be a better company. You know, so there's that option, right? Like maybe you should just improve your operations so that people don't have to complain. And that's where customer feedback is so important. Look, Shep, you know what the most overrated thing is in life?
I'm excited to know. Is it the one thing?
No, praise. Praise is the most overrated thing, because praise teaches you nothing. When somebody says, you're great at this, and this is spectacular, and you're so this, and you're so that, you already know that. You already know it every time. Praise teaches you nothing. What teaches you something is haters, negative feedback, criticism. That's the petri dish of improvement. And businesses so often like lust for the praise and then turn away from the negative feedback, and it should absolutely be the other way around. Haters are your most important customers, but they're treated as the least important customers.
Right. One of the and I had this question specifically, you know, why are they, the haters, the most valuable customers that we have? And I think you're getting into this. They teach us how to be better at what we do. It's that simple.
Yeah. Well, and they're also using their time to do so. Like we ignore this all constantly, right? You have to understand somebody's already unhappy with you for whatever reason. And instead of just leaving and just saying, I don't like those guys, I'm not coming back, they actually go out of their way to use their time to tell you what you've done that is less than perfect, at least in their eyes. And that really is a good. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And actually, years ago, I read a book by Janelle Barlow. I think we referenced it in your book.
Yeah. It's a gift. Yeah. It's great.
And it really is a gift. They hand it to you, I wouldn't say on a silver platter, but in this case, they hand it to you in a Yelp review or a tweet. And I think, you know, we've hit a couple of really important topics here. Number one, we absolutely need to be involved on these social channels. There's not a question about it anymore. It's not should we or shouldn't we. It's if you haven't done it, you got to get on it, and you got to get on it now. Response time is crucial. You mentioned the KLM example that they're responding within 10 minutes. I think I've mentioned this example on the show before, but I won't tell you the name of the airlines, but their initials are, well, let's just say AA for Anonymous Airlines, if you know what I mean, and you think you do. Okay, American Airlines. I'm flying around, and we're going into Dallas, and we're circling and circling and circling because of bad weather, and the captain comes on and says, I'm sorry, bad weather, we're circling, but don't worry, all of the other flights are also just as delayed as we will be upon landing. Now, we have internet access on the planes. So I'm on the plane, and I just decided to check my connecting flight. And, of course, my connecting flight is the only one that's going to be leaving on time. So what do? I jump on Twitter, and I direct message. And, by the way, there's a right way to complain and a right way to get action. And the first time you even mentioned it. We try a private channel. Now I'm using a social channel, but it's still going private. I'm direct messaging American Airlines saying, here's my frequent flyer number. Look me up. I'm circling and I'm going to miss my connection. Please help. And within 7 minutes, they have me protected on the next flight. And I land and I walk out and people are panicking. They're on the phone, and they'll tell you it's going to be a 2-hour, at least when I call the number, they'll say it's at least 2 hours. Do you want us to call you back or whatever? You're thinking, how do I connect? You go and you see all the long lines. Social, if the customer learns how to use it correctly, is a great mode of communicating, but the company has to be on the receiving end ready to take it.
No doubt. And one of the things that's tricky about that, and lots of people have had similar examples where they got manifestly better service in social media than they did in traditional channels. And there's some reasons for that. Sometimes the social media team is less burdened with regulation, with internal processes. There's lots of reasons why social media guys can be quicker sometimes than phone or email. But realize that when you give customers a much better experience in social media, the next time they have a problem, they're not going to call. Because now you have taught them. It's just like having a puppy, right? You have now taught that customer that if they need anything, go to Twitter first or go to Facebook first. Why would you bother going through the middleman of phone and email? And when that happens at scale, and it is starting to happen at scale, the folks who are answering the phone are going to have to now shift over some of those resources to social media, because if the research that we did showed that 2/3 of complaints are off stage, so phone and email. Of all complaints, 2/3 are off stage, 1/3 are online. But that balance is starting to even out, and it will continue to do so because people do get better response online in many cases. And frankly, it's faster and easier to complain in an app on a smartphone in one hand than it is to call or wait on hold. And so I'm delighted that GoToAssist is part of this, because they're going to help lead this revolution where we start thinking of it not as a call center, but as a contact center that is channel agnostic. So if the customer wants to interact with us on WeChat or Snapchat or Facebook or TripAdvisor or whatever, or email or phone, the answer is fine. Like we will interact with you however you want to interact with us. Now that's going to require some pretty significant retooling for many companies process-wise to make that happen. But that's what I'm trying to do with this Hug Your Haters book, and what we're trying to do on the consulting side too is come in and say, look, let's look at this as it doesn't matter whether it's phone, email, social media. The customer needs help. Let's just help them.
Right, and I want to say that the retooling, as you mentioned, could be a cost. However, the cost of managing online complaints, questions, problems, creating good self-serve solutions in addition to that becomes far less expensive than the phone or a traditional channel. So you may think it's an investment that's costing a lot of money, but the reality of it is the payoff is going to be, as this starts to even out, and maybe even has a tipping point that crosses the cost of managing the online interaction, because people can be, just as they do many times with chat, 2-3 conversations going on at once, and just managing things in such a shorter period of time. I think you have some stats about the cost of a phone call versus
that's a great point. I'm so glad you brought that up. It's such a smart point. So the stats that we have is it's about $1, and of course you realize that these stats are based on a large aggregate, but approximately $1 to answer a problem in social media, $5 to $8 for an email, and then $10 and up for a call. Well, you start thinking at scale, well, geez, if I can answer 10 social media complaints for the price of every phone call, well, at some point, you think that companies should start to say, well, we really want you to interact with us in Twitter, but right now, or Facebook or anywhere. But right now, what we actually see in practice is most companies view social care as kind of a necessary evil, more so than an actual financial opportunity for them.
Right, and it really is. I mean, you really covered a lot of bases here. I think you've incorporated the value very clearly. There's a value proposition to doing this right, and it's not just the good reputation, the goodwill you earn with your customers. There is a financial return, not just from customers wanting to do business with you, but potentially by going social, if you will, and managing things on the social level, you have a more cost-effective, leaner operation of support. So as we start to wrap this up, and unfortunately we're getting out of time, and I got to tell you what, this is it flew by for me. I always ask the question, one thing. If there's one thing you want us to remember, one thing from the book, hug your haters. And by the way, we should tell them, you have a special arrangement right now for anybody that wants to purchase this. If they're watching this show and the book is not yet out, because it's coming out very soon, but if they watch the show and it's not yet out, you have a special deal. And then tell us about the one thing.
Okay, sure will. Thank you, Shep. So yeah, if you want to buy the book from me, which would be fantastic, I'll give you an amazing deal on the book. I'll ship it for free anywhere in the U.S. or Canada. And there's all kinds of special bonus offers. So we've got Hug Your Hater socks, we've got special webinars, we've got free online courses, Facebook groups, all kinds of stuff, all kinds of bonus material that's not in the book, including some remarkable research that couldn't fit in the book. So if you go to hugyourhaters.com and buy the books there from me, I will hook you up. Obviously, once the book comes out, which is March 1st, you can get it anywhere that books can be gotten. So hugyourhaters.com. I think the one thing I want to leave people with, Shep, is, and I say it many times in the book, I come back to this saying often because I really want to drive it home, which is that haters are not your problem. Ignoring them is. Every time you choose to not interact with a customer who's unhappy, you are not only making that situation worse, but you're also robbing yourself of an opportunity to not only turn that person around, but to demonstrate to all the people who are watching as spectators what kind of company you are. You're willfully giving away opportunities and, frankly, revenue every time you choose to ignore a negative customer interaction.
All right. Haters aren't the problem. Ignoring them is the problem. You have given us such great, valuable information over the last half hour or so. Hug Your Haters is the book by Jay Baer. You're amazing, dude. I don't know how you remember all these stats and these facts, and you're just awesome at what you do. So I love that we had this time together. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. I know I surely did. Lots of information to take away. Thanks to our good friends at Go2Assist for sponsoring the show. This is Book for Success. My name's Shep Hyken. We'll see you on the next show.